Right as the town hung up discount signs for Veterans Day, the man with the cane got bumped on the bus, and no one looked twice. Name's Liam, 19. Part-time barista. The heater was blasting stale air, and his old marine pin caught the sunlight like it was watching me. Ever wonder what story might be sitting quietly across from you? Every morning, Walter Hensley stood quietly at the corner of Main and Orchard where the bus led off near the hardware store and a line of dormant shrubs. He leaned on his cane with practiced patience, weight shifted just so to keep the cold out of his hip. The sun hadn't risen fully, and the breeze still carried that early November bite, rustling the dry leaves into the street. No one noticed him, really. He didn't make much sound. Didn't ask for anything. Just stood in his coat, brown wool slightly too big in the shoulders now, and waited. The town went on around him. Cars rolled past without slowing. A delivery van backed up too close and belched exhaust. Down the block, the light flicked on inside Tucker's Beans, a cafe tucked between the pharmacy and the dog groomer. Margie, the owner, moved behind the counter with the same rhythm she'd had since the Reagan years, slow, steady, and without waste. Inside, Liam Tucker leaned over the espresso machine, tapping a portafilter against the edge like he was sending Morse code. 19 with earbuds in and his hoodie sleeves rolled up past the elbows. He didn't look outside. Walter shifted his weight. The cane clicked once against the pavement. His other hand gripped the worn handle of a cloth grocery bag. Empty except for a rolled-up local newspaper and a tin of mints. Liam exited the cafe at 7:42 holding a to-go cup he hadn't paid for and a satchel slung across his shoulder. He saw Walter at the stop, tallish, bent slightly forward, but didn't pause. Just scrolled through something on his phone, eyes flickering across the screen, thumbs moving. Margie watched from inside and gave a nod toward the window. Walt saw it, tipped his cap in return. The bus hissed up to the curb at 7:48. Doors opened with that tired sigh they always made, and Walter stepped up slowly, gripping the rail. The driver didn't greet him, didn't look up. The bus wasn't crowded, not exactly, but no one offered a seat either. Students, workers, retirees with crossword puzzles, all of them lost in something else. A few stared out the windows. One girl wore headphones the size of grapefruits. Walter took the first open spot he could find, stood bracing with one arm while the cane knocked gently against his knee. 3 stops later, someone boarded in a rush. A teenager, wiry, baggy sweatshirt, shouldered his way down the aisle and clipped Walter's cane with his backpack. The cane slipped. Walter stumbled not badly, but enough. A small sound left his throat, the kind you make when gravity surprises you. No one moved. The boy kept walking. Someone turned a page in a newspaper. Walter caught himself, adjusted, straightened slowly. A seat opened up in the front row, but he didn't move toward it, just stayed standing. At the rear of the bus, Liam looked up from his phone briefly. His eyes tracked Walt for a second longer than usual. He didn't say anything, just frowned, puzzled, like a word had suddenly gone missing from a sentence. By the time they reached the intersection at 8:04, the sky had brightened, but the morning still carried that strange half-light cold on the fingers soft on the sidewalk. The bus pulled away, leaving a gust of leaves behind. Walt made no comment, made no eye contact, just adjusted his coat collar against the wind and kept moving, his steps slow, the cane tapping like a metronome that only he could hear. He wasn't in anyone's way. He never was. Walt didn't talk about the war, not because he couldn't, but because no one ever asked. And the quiet of his home time moved slower. The heater kicked in with a sigh, rattling somewhere under the floorboards. A thin shaft of light slipped between the blinds, landing across a shelf where a wooden display box sat polished but plain, filled with medals that hadn't seen daylight in years. He dusted them once a week. Today was that day. Walt picked up the silver star first, ran his thumb along the edge like he was checking for wear. Then the Purple Heart, slightly tarnished. He cleaned it with the corner of a handkerchief folded crisp like muscle memory still pulled from a long-ago uniform. The living room smelled faintly of lemon oil and old paper. On the wall, a photograph hung in a simple brown frame. 7 Marines crouched together in a dirt-covered compound, all squinting into the sun. One of them had written M. Tran in black marker across the front of his vest. They looked impossibly young. The phone on the table blinked one new voicemail. Walt hit play. "Hi, Mr. Hensley. This is Joanne Davis Michael's mom. I know you don't always return calls, but I wanted you to know I got your last letter. I keep it in my Bible. I still make his coffee some mornings just for the smell of it. Anyway, thank you. That's all. Thank you." The message ended. The silence that followed was thicker than usual. He stood slowly, walked to the kitchen. The cane tapped once, twice, then steadied. On the refrigerator, a VA reminder was clipped with a magnet shaped like a sunflower aptee. No Werter 15, 9:00 a.m. Dr. Delaney Ortho Eval. He didn't plan to go. Never did. He poured himself a cup of lukewarm coffee from the stovetop pot. Sat down again in his armchair. The news was playing something about the upcoming Veterans Day events downtown. He turned the volume down to a murmur. Next to his mug was a folded letter. The envelope was soft at the corners, creased from too much handling. It had been opened and refolded a dozen times. He unfolded it slowly. "Walt, if this ever reaches you, I just want to say thanks. Not just for saving my life, but for writing to my mom. You didn't have to. Most people wouldn't. I hope you're still out there. Michael." There was more, but he didn't read past that line anymore. The first part was always enough. He sat for a long while, eyes on the photo, then down at the metal, then out the window. Leaves skittered across the sidewalk. A neighbor's dog barked once, then went quiet. He picked up the phone, dialed a number, let it ring 4 times, then voicemail. "Hey," he said. "No big thing, just checking in." Pause. "I'm all right. Just thinking about things." Another pause. "Anyway, no need to call back." He hung up, folded the letter carefully, slipped it into the inside pocket of his coat, the same coat he wore to the bus stop each morning. Just in case. He stood, looked around the room like he was seeing it through someone else's eyes. The folded flag in the display case, the photo of his unit, the mug from Quantico, the dusty Marine Corps cap on the hook by the door. Outside, a breeze stirred the wind chimes. The sun had risen higher now. The day waiting for him like it always did. Walt reached for his cane. Pulled the coat on, slowly checked the pocket once more to make sure the letter was still there. "Maybe it's time I show up," he said softly to no one. Then, with the same quiet grace he brought to every morning of his life, he opened the door and stepped outside. The town was buzzing, at least by its quiet standards. On Main Street, flags fluttered in the chilly breeze. A row of laminated flyers taped to light poles announced Veterans Day Parade, Nov 11, at 10 a.m. Storefronts offered 10% discounts for veterans, handwritten signs on cash registers with smiley faces beside the words, "Thank you for your service." But nobody remembered the man at the bus stop. Walt arrived early that morning, earlier than usual. He wore the same coat buttoned high against the wind, and on the lapel sat a small pin gold and red, the unmistakable emblem of the United States Marine Corps. It caught the light briefly as he adjusted the strap of his bag. The clouds hung low, softening the sky into a sheet of dull pewter. He stood under it, still as ever. Across the street, a mother's grocery bag gave out. A carton of eggs hit the sidewalk, followed by a clatter of cans and a small, startled yelp from the toddler in her stroller. Walt moved before anyone else. He bent slowly, cane steady, and picked up a rolling can of green beans. The mother, flustered and red-faced, rushed to scoop the rest. "Oh, thank you," she said quickly, not quite meeting his eyes. "Really, I'm so sorry. Thank you." Then she pushed the stroller off down the sidewalk, already checking her phone. Walt gave a faint smile and stepped back to the curb. Liam Tucker had seen the whole thing from the cafe doorway, coffee in one hand, a paper bag in the other. His breath fogged faintly as he squinted through the breeze. That pin. He hadn't noticed it before. Or maybe he'd never looked close enough. He stepped inside. The warmth of the cafe and the hum of grinders swallowed him for a moment. But something stayed with him. Walt's movement, the quiet way he helped, the way the mom never really saw him, even as she thanked him. 5 minutes later, Liam stepped back out with a second cup of coffee. He walked across the street, more unsure with every step. Walt turned slightly as the cup extended toward him. Liam cleared his throat. Here, for you. Walt looked at the cup, then at Liam. And Liam added awkwardly, thanks for your service. The words didn't land perfectly. They never do the first time. But Walt smiled genuinely and took the cup without a word. His fingers wrapped around it like it was more than just warmth. He nodded once, kind, not patronizing. Liam opened his mouth to say something else, then let it go. He gave a half nod and turned back toward the cafe. Just as he stepped off the curb, headlights flicked once across the crosswalk, subtle, not demanding. He looked up. An unmarked SUV was parked across the street. Tinted windows, engine idling low. The vehicle hadn't been there before, or maybe it had, and no one thought to notice. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. Tall shoulders square. Military boots hit the pavement with a soft thud. Dark coat, high collar. No insignia, no theatrics. Liam froze mid-step. The man didn't approach Walt. Not yet. Just stood at the front of the SUV, hands behind his back, gaze steady. There was a pause, intentional, heavy with meaning Liam couldn't quite name. Walt stood straighter almost imperceptibly. His cane tapped once. He nodded toward the man. From inside the cafe, Margie had paused mid-pour. Even the mailman across the street stopped beside his truck, squinting past the reflections in the window. Liam glanced from Walt to the SUV, then back. Something was happening. Not a ceremony, not a parade. Something quieter. Walt sipped the coffee Liam had given him. His gaze didn't waver. Liam stepped back onto the curb and just watched, unsure of what he was part of, but now fully aware he was in the middle of it. The sky was crisp and gold, the kind of light that made everything feel softer than it was. Flags along Main Street rippled gently, each one catching the breeze like a breath. It was Veterans Day in Elmsworth small-town kind. Folding chairs on sidewalks. Children holding crayon-colored signs. Someone tuning a brass instrument down by the town square. But at the bus stop, something else was happening. Walt stood exactly where he always did. Same coat, same cane, same quiet. Across the street, the SUV door opened wider. One by one, they stepped out. 8 men in uniform. Not dress blues, not for show, but pressed precise boots clean enough to catch sunlight. They walked with the practiced rhythm of those who still remembered formation, who still honored steps and spacing. No barked orders, no fanfare. They formed a line beside Walt. At first, no one knew what to make of it. A few bystanders paused. A stroller slowed. Liam, still holding an untouched coffee cup from earlier, watched with his breath caught in his throat. The line of Marines stood at silent attention. Walt hadn't moved. Then the final figure emerged from the passenger side, tall, composed, maybe early 40s. The name on his chest read, CPT, M. Tran. He approached slowly. Stopped in front of the man with the cane. Gunnery Sergeant Walter Hensley, he said, voice clear but steady. You don't know me, but you saved my father's life. Walt blinked. The breeze caught the edges of his coat. His fingers twitched at the cane. He didn't speak. Captain Tron took a breath. He told me your name before he passed. Told me what you did. How you stayed behind so they could get out. My father never forgot. Neither did I. There was a long moment. No traffic noise. No phones ringing. Just wind and footfall. Then as one, the 8 Marines raised their hands in salute. The gesture was slow. Full. Walt didn't move for several seconds. Then, as if remembering the motion from a different life, he straightened. Just enough, lifted his right hand and returned the salute. His hand shook only slightly. Liam felt it before he understood it, something rising in his throat. Marv stood inside the cafe with a dish towel clenched in one hand. Someone across the street whispered, "Who is that man?" A phone lifted, then another, but no one dared speak above the moment. Captain Tron stepped forward, removed a small box from his breast pocket and pressed it into Walt's palm. No words, just the action. Walt nodded once. No smile, no tears. But his eyes glistened as the light caught the edges of the box. The Marines turned, pivoted in perfect unison, and stepped back to the SUV. Captain Tron paused. "I don't know if you still wear them," he said. "But if you do, this one's for now." Walt opened the box just slightly. Inside a patch marine gold and black clean thread. His name embroidered beneath the emblem. One simple word beside it, "Still here." He tucked it into his coat pocket just above the letter from Michael. The SUV doors closed. The engine hummed. Then they were gone, leaving nothing behind but boot prints in the dust and a silence that rang louder than applause ever could. Walt stood a little straighter. Liam approached slowly, unsure what to say, if anything. He didn't have to. Walt gave him a look. Not a smile, not quite. But something close. They stood together as the bus rumbled up the street. This time, the driver opened the door and nodded. This time, people noticed. The bus arrived like always. Same soft hiss of brakes, same slight lean as it pulled up to the curb. The morning air was crisp and clean, the kind that hinted at winter around the edges but still held a little of autumn's light. But this time, Walter Hensley didn't stand alone. At the stop, the bench looked the same at first glance, same flaking green paint, same scuff marks along the legs, except for a small bronze plaque now affixed to the backrest. It wasn't big. Just enough to be read by those who took the time. Reserved for a hero. Walt didn't touch it, didn't run his fingers across the letters. He just looked at it once, then sat. The seat beside him, long left empty more by instinct than circumstance, wasn't empty today. Liam slid in next to him, 2 cups of coffee in hand. One passed wordlessly to the older man. "Thanks for showing up," Liam said. Walt took the cup, his fingers curling around the warmth. "Always do," he said simply. The street was still slow. Early risers shuffled by with paper bags and coffee cups, but a few more than usual paused to glance toward the bench. Not in a gawking way, just noticing. Just seeing. A woman approached, hand gently guiding a little boy with bright sneakers and a mop of brown hair. They stopped a few feet in front of Walt. The boy stepped forward, unsure but curious. "My mom says you helped save her grandpa." Walt blinked, then set the cane aside, shifted slightly, and leaned forward, knees protesting but not too much. He extended his hand. The boy took it with both of his. "Thank you," the boy added, earnest, as only children can be. Walt nodded. "That means a lot." From the corner cafe window, Margie stood behind the counter, watching with quiet pride. Someone inside clapped once. Another joined. It didn't ripple into applause, it stayed soft. Honest. The kind of gesture that meant something without trying too hard. The bus driver opened the door. This time he made eye contact. Tipped his cap. Walt stood slowly. But he didn't rush. As he turned toward the steps, Liam spoke again. "You still carry that letter?" Walt looked down, then gently tapped the inside pocket of his coat. "Always," he said. "Not for me. For mornings like this." The two of them stepped aboard. The cane clicked softly on the metal step. Inside, someone stood to offer Walt a seat. He waved them off, sat beside Liam. Outside, the plaque caught the morning light, a thin line of gold around the words. No music played, no speeches echoed down Main Street. But something in the town had changed, and it would stay changed in the way people nodded to strangers or slowed down when they saw someone waiting alone. Because sometimes the quietest heroes just need someone to sit beside them. And sometimes that's how everything begins. Some mornings begin like any other until a simple gesture, a shared bench, a child's handshake reminds us we've been walking past quiet greatness all along. Walt never asked to be noticed, but when someone finally did, the town remembered what it means to honor without spectacle. True kindness doesn't need a stage. It only asks for space to be seen. Like a lantern, quietly left on in a window, even the smallest act of respect can guide someone home. And maybe, just maybe, taking time to notice the silent good around us is how we keep the best of ourselves alive.